Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's interview. I'm really excited. We have not only an amazing kind of leader in our community, not only from the animal rights movement, but as behind the Rochester Veg Fest, but we also have a Food for Life instructor. And as many of you know, the Food for Life program with PCRM is near and dear to my heart. So I'm really excited that we have such an amazing guest today to not only talk about the idea of pivoting, the idea of responding to what's been happening in our world, the idea of how really Bubbie has responded to kind of all the change that's been happening, but also to share her story, really give an opportunity for us to not only get to know her today, but also maybe be inspired by her story, by the path and the journey that Bubbie has been on. So without further ado, I want to just take a minute and say thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you.
Now, when we talk about the pivoting, when we talk about the current environment, before we get into all those details, one thing I like to do is just kind of give people a little bit of background on your experience, background on where you come from, and also because you're such a leader in multiple ways and wear multiple hats, maybe let's get everyone caught up. So just a few initial questions in the beginning. Number one, being vegan. How long have you been vegan? Just so we can share that with the world.
Somewhere between 5 and 6 years. I'm not one of those people that knows their vegan anniversary, and I'm so sorry I don't, but it's been years. We were vegetarian for several years before we went completely vegan. Couldn't be happier.
Oh, that's so great. And honestly, I think maybe we can just celebrate multiple birthdays for you.
Yeah.
That's always a good reason to celebrate. Now, one thing I mentioned in the intro is that you wear multiple hats. So let's give people a little bit of background on the hats that you wear and kind of what you do in those capacities and how you're helping kind of the movement move forward and also helping individuals who are transitioning to a plant-based diet.
Awesome. So I am Vice President of Animal Rights Rochester. That's our grassroots animal rights organization here in my home city. We do outreach. We try and hit up a few festivals. Anytime that there's an opportunity to table, we go and represent there just to kind of educate folks on animal welfare issues and really just trying to stop using animals in any way whatsoever. I am also one of the co-founders of Rochester Veg Fest. Our city just did not have a Veg Fest, and one day we woke up and decided that we were going to. So
Nice.
A couple other women and I just got together and we planned it from scratch. It was an amazing experience, and this is our 4th year, but we are kind of tabling it because of COVID. So I can talk about that pivot later also if you'd like.
Oh, absolutely. Because I think that's one of the things that a lot of Veg Fest are trying to figure out is how do we still get the information out. So we can definitely tackle that too.
Yeah. I also just literally started my very baby business, I'm calling it. It's a month old, called the Plant-Based Heart. That's what I'm doing with my Food for Life certification. And then I also have a full-time job working with our county's Human Services Department, working with the financially disadvantaged people in our community.
Wow. We're so lucky to have someone like you in our community. You're doing so much and working in so many different ways. So I love being able to hear that. The other thing I want to mention is, I know you said, it's been about a month, it's a baby business, but one thing I think is so important is a lot of people are worried about, or we're scared of the idea of maybe launching a business during all of this. The idea that, do I just wait it out? Do I just wait until, as we say, get back to normal? What made you feel comfortable enough to say, yes, this is the time? With obviously some pivoting in mind, but what made you feel confident with moving forward and not waiting things out?
Well, that's exactly what I was doing, was just kind of waiting things out. I was waiting until all of the circumstances were perfect. I was waiting until I could get my website perfect. I was waiting until I could get a business plan perfect. And then I just decided there's never going to be a perfect time. And the phrase leap and the net will appear came to my head, and I set a date to leap and I leapt, and the net is appearing. It's amazing.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. So let's talk about that net. Let's talk
Yeah.
about that, and also that experience. And maybe you can even rewind for us, like you said, when you did your Food for Life certification, kind of where you were and where things started, and where you maybe thought you had momentum, and then how things
Yeah.
might have changed in these last few months, or at least 6 months or so.
Right. So I actually went to Washington to get my certification with the support of my full-time employer's wellness committee. So I'm on the wellness committee for Monroe County. I
Nice.
had their support, and the game plan was for me to go get my certification and then bring these classes right to my workspace, my workplace.
Nice. That's
And
exciting.
we've got 5,000 employees in the county. So, just visiting site to site and just offering this as an employee benefit. And as, things just don't snap into place like that. So there was a lot of planning that had to go on once we got back. And we were in the midst of planning. And then we had a leadership change after the elections. And then COVID hit. And I was just sitting on my Food for Life certification with nowhere to go with it. And I said, I want to get this information out. I want to share this information.
That's big. And I'm glad you bring that up, because I think sometimes when we all start, we do kind of start with a plan. We start with a
Right.
process. And the idea is you had a great plan. It was really such an amazing thing, an amazing place to start. Many of us start with the blank sheet of paper, or, the room with just our cousin and our mothers showing up for the
Right.
classes.
Yes.
So it's amazing you were able to, you had that opportunity in hand. But like you said, election, COVID, all these things that can impact us in our businesses make us pivot, make us kind of, figure out what to do next. And also I would argue that sometimes they make us stronger as business owners, as leaders. I don't know, what's your thoughts on that?
I'm going to agree with you. It felt very comfortable to know that I had a plan in place, that I was just going to come back from Washington and start teaching classes. That was very comforting and comfortable. And then what they say about the best laid plans. So, you mentioned it makes us stronger. And I'm a true believer that change doesn't come from being comfortable. Change comes from being uncomfortable. So I was kind of forced to, if I wanted to get this information out, I was forced to be a little uncomfortable and just go out on my own a little bit.
Perfect. So let's now bring it back to current day. Where are you now and what's happening?
Okay. Monday night, I had my very first online class for yes. So it was so exciting to see that first paid ticket come in through my website. And, it's a small group, and I'm okay with that. There's, I think, 6 of us in that group right now, or 7. And, everything went well once we got some of the technical glitches from the Zoom meeting handled. Everything went well after that first class. It's really exciting to actually be doing it after thinking about doing it for so long.
Yeah, I think that's the key. I think a lot of times when we're planning our businesses, we're kind of running through the idea in our minds over and over and over, but it's nothing like actually doing it. It's nothing
Right.
like when you hit the play button, when you open the Zoom, when, the first student arrives, is nothing like that feeling of being able to know that you've gotten to that point where you're truly in action. Now, one thing I want to comment on, you mentioned that you had about 6 students, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Now, I think a lot of times when we start our businesses, we all hope that we start with the sold out crowds, the concept, especially back in the day of, if there's a line around the block of people. But the reality is, at least in my mind, as business owners, we have to earn people's respect, earn people's money, because they are paying for things like classes or whatever services that many of us are offering. And I really think it's important that we celebrate all of our wins, and we don't get sometimes too caught up in the numbers because we think bigger is better. But to me, even with 6 people, that's 6 people you touched. That's 6 people that you helped. That's 6 people that you might have transformed, or, you know what I mean? As they look back a year from now, 6 months from now, you might have really dramatically changed their lives. And that's just one way I look at it. I don't know if you look at it the same way, but I bring that up because I think sometimes, yes, we wish we had bigger numbers, but it's such an amazing thing when you're helping people.
Yes. So I am the eternal optimist, and I try and find good in every situation. So I had put a limit of 12 students for my first class. I have 6 participants right now, and I don't feel bad about that at all. It's actually going to allow me to give a little bit more personalized attention to each person during each session. So
yeah, and I love that, because I think in this day and age, we want to get leverage. I mean, I talk about that a lot of times about, being able to do more, but I think there's nothing like giving people great service, being available to answer questions. And then also, cooking classes sometimes need to be smaller, to your point, because you want to help people. You want to be able to answer their questions when you get over a certain number. So anyway, I am so excited for you, and I just am so happy that you're doing that. And also, I think some people have been challenged right now, maybe other individuals that are doing cooking classes or thought about doing cooking classes, that they've always felt that people wouldn't pay for an online cooking class. They just wouldn't pay for it. And I love that you have the proof now to back it up, to say that people will, and they want it, and they're interested. And it's a huge hurdle for many people to accomplish in their business. So first off, bravo. And second off, I hope that anybody who's listening feels inspired and will follow in your footsteps as well.
I hope so too. Just leap.
So what's next? What are you thinking about now that you've gotten this first class going? Your business is out there. Do you know what I mean? You're checking for the net every once in a while to make sure it's still there. But what's your next thing for you?
Well, I actually am going to be coaching with my business as well, and I have a prospective student, mentee, if you want, that I'll be doing individual coaching with. I also forgot to mention that I work at Rochester Lifestyle Medicine as well, doing CHIP classes, and we are talking about bringing some of the Food for Life classes into that business as well. So that would be, even though I'm an employee of Rochester Lifestyle Medicine, I can bring my business in there as the plant-based heart, and teach classes through there too. So
that's great. And I love that when you're thinking about your business, you're thinking about an integrated approach as well. You're thinking about how can you leverage the connections that you have? How do you leverage the groups and the organizations that you work with and support? So therefore, your business becomes a part of kind of the fabric of your community, of your area, of your network. I think that's a really important thing, because I think sometimes we all think we need this like big nationwide business that we're going to build and grow. But I think it's so important when we can go local.
I agree with you. And one of the things that I don't want anybody to be afraid of having too much competition in your community. There is plenty of space for all of us there to get our message of veganism out. So, and it is so great just to see people working side by side with different organizations. So don't be afraid of the competition.
Absolutely. And, people need diversity. People need to see and work with different types of instructors for different types of purposes, different stories we have as well. So I really think it's great when we do take that collaborative approach with our businesses, collaborative approach with our communities, of thinking about how not only can we work together, but the idea that there's space for everyone.
Right.
So let's widen the world. We talked about your business, we talked about your classes, we talked about coaching. What else do you have planned? You mentioned maybe for the Rochester Veg Fest. Do you guys have plans to
Yes.
take that to an online space? Are you thinking about maybe postponing it until next year? Or are you guys still working through the details?
We're still working through the details. We did make the decision that we don't think that there's a safe way to have an in-person Veg Fest. It's scheduled for the beginning of September.
Okay.
So it's too hard to say what the situation's going to be like in just a few months. So we made that decision to just keep the community as safe as possible and table the in-person Veg Fest until next year. But we had some potential great speakers lined up. We are thinking about doing putting out virtual, like a virtual Veg Fest, the weekend that we were scheduled to have our in-person one, and we'll have some cooking demonstrations and like some business spotlights for
Nice.
all of we have 80 or so businesses that come to our Veg Fest, so it'll be
Oh,
nice
that's
to be
great.
able to spotlight at least a handful of them, and we've got our regulars that are really well loved in the community, and it'll be nice to be able to spotlight those. It's not going away. There's going to be something. We just haven't put the final touches on it yet.
Absolutely. I think that's really great to hear that you're working through a plan and going to just make sure that we get something out for the community, but obviously keep
Yeah.
everyone safe. So I think that's really, really, really exciting.
There's a great team working on our Rochester Veg Fest this year. We brought in some new blood, so to speak. So they're really working hard on just getting something out there.
Perfect. We got a quick comment. I just wanted to show it to you on the screen where someone
Sure.
was just thanking you for all that's being done and all the things that are happening. I always love to kind of recognize, sometimes I just get comments, but sometimes it's so sweet and wonderful when people make these comments. So thank you so much, Peace Channel, for your message. I think that is great. And I just wanted to make sure that that you saw that as well.
I love that.
So as we're wrapping up this time together, as we're kind of, we jumped into everyone's kind of computers for a few minutes to give them a little bit of insight in what you're doing and how you're pivoting. Do you have any advice, especially for maybe anyone who is thinking about starting their business now, anyone who, like you said, maybe waiting for the perfect this, the perfect that, the perfect this and that? Any advice that you have for anyone who is watching?
Yes. My advice is don't wait. There's not going to be a perfect time. And, I keep saying leap in the net will appear. That has been in my head since, mid-March, trying to get this out. So leap in the net will appear. Take chances. It doesn't have to be perfect. And nobody's going to know on the other side if it's not perfect the way that you had planned it. It's only you that's going to be worried about that. So take chances, take a risk. This is actually, it's an unfortunate time that we're in with COVID, but it's also a good opportunity when folks are trying to move away from an animal heavy diet and trying to find some healthier ways to eat. So it would be a great time if you're teaching plant-based classes or anything like that. Now's the time to jump.
Great. And then just so everyone can get in touch with you, if anyone's interested in the class,
Yes.
if they're in Rochester, or even if someone maybe wants to get some coaching, can you give them your website and maybe your social media account so they can get in touch with you? Actually, Janet prompted me. She just sent a message. So thanks, Janet, for that.
Okay. The business is called The Plant-Based Heart, and you can find us on the web at theplantbasedheart.com. You can email me directly at Bubbie at The Plant-Based Heart. That's Bubbie at theplantbasedheart.com. And I have my Facebook page up for The Plant-Based Heart, but that's as far as I've gotten so far. So those are the other things on my list, is to get my Instagram at least out.
Absolutely. Hey, it's a checklist, one thing at a time, just doing that. And honestly, I'm glad you said that because that's another proof in the fact that you said, I'm getting these classes. I'm not waiting till I have it all. My entire checklist is done. I'm not waiting until I've done all this. I'm going to get out there, get my business started, and start helping people. So
absolutely.
I love that. I love it when we show that we're walking the walk. You know what I mean?
Yes.
We're doing what we say we're doing. So,
yes.
So thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Is there anything else you want to share before we wrap up? I just want to make sure I've given you that opportunity.
No, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be a vegan. Living a vegan life is probably the best thing that my little family has ever done. And I just love spreading the information. I'm grateful for you and what you do for that as well.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm so glad when we get to feature and highlight vegans, with myself being vegan. It's just so great when we can inspire people, encourage people, and also kind of show, who we are as a community and the lives that we live and the things that we do and the jobs that we have and the friends we have, you know what I mean? So,
yeah.
Because we are a fabric of, this wider community and society. So I love it when we get a chance to kind of chit chat, talk, and, welcome people in so they can meet new people and if they haven't met you before, or at least get an update on what you've been working on because you've been such a leader in our community for some time. So thank you again for taking your time. Thank you everyone who's watched us live. If you're listening to this on our podcast, or if you're watching this at a later date, you can always still comment. We will check out the comments, get back to you. If you are trying to get in touch with Bubbie, you're going to see her website link is going to be in the descriptions. And if you need anything else, we'll make sure we facilitate it and make sure you get in touch with our guest. All right. So thank you everyone for joining. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Thank you. Peace.